countdown to the last comic shop in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Can you dig it? It's now time for more of the last comic shop.
That's right. We're opening it up. The shop that is to newbies to help them find their way underneath this giant comic book tent.
And we're keeping the lights on for the oldie moldies that are just indulging their favorites from years ago and thinking about how awesome they are and thinking about how awesome these new movies are going to be and thinking about all this awesome stuff. It's just awesome.
That's right. We embrace things that are old and still awesome. I'm old and still awesome. The host with the most, Andy Larson. I'm joined by other guys that are old and awesome as well. Jay Scott, Chad Smith. And we are talking about two old warriors, for those people that got my initial quote from the Warriors movie, that appear...
Booker T. The five-time WCW.
No. That's the beginning of war. Anyways, these two old warriors in Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman coming back for Deadpool Wolverine. That is our movie review later in today's show. But before we get to that, as we often do on the Last Comic Shop when we review a movie, we like to provide a review of a comic book, just in case you're one of those yokels that walks out of that theater and goes, hey, I really need to be reading some Deadpool. What's a good, cool Deadpool story that I can read? And Chad picked a cool Deadpool story for us to read, right?
That's right. So this actually was published around 2010, 2011. And so it initially had flown under my radar a little bit. I don't think I was paying attention when Deadpool Corps or the prelude to Deadpool Corps was released. It was about a month ago. I was able to find the back issues at a big sale at Ides to finally finish off this run. And I'm like, let's read it now.
There you go. And it is done by a variety of folks, Chad. I mean, including somebody that you've been off to say is one of your favorite folks in comic books, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm an unabashed Rob Liefeld fan. He does the pencils for this story. But let's start with the writer, Victor Geisler. He handles the writing duties for issues 1 through 12. We have Rob Liefeld, and he's inked by Adelso Corona. And then Matt Yackey's on colors. Clayton Cowles does letters. And then when there are fill-in issues, issue number 6 is filled in by Marat Michaels, who longtime Liefeld fans will know, worked in Rob Liefeld's studio doing backgrounds, filling in blacks and all that other stuff, and then got his big break on Brigade.
Ooh.
One of the first Image books to come out under Liefeld's studio with Extreme. Not
Extreme with an X?
Or EX. So, yeah, no, he continues to work into the industry to this day. He does the Do You Pooh covers you'll see on the internet where they take Winnie the Pooh and put him in all sorts of other wacky scenarios.
Wow.
I've never read one, but like the people who go crazy over covers, like they love those books. But anyway, he fills in on issue 6 with Jamie Mendoza on inks, and then he comes back to finish the job for issues 10 through 12, inked by Corey Hampshire from, I want to say, Invincible fame. He used to ink over Ryan Otley.
So he did issue 6, issue 10, issue 11, issue 12.
Correct.
So that's 4 out of the 12 issues. That's a third of the book. Can you be called a fill-in artist if you do a third of the...
At what point do you become co-artist? Like, should you get top billing?
67% plus covers are Rob Liefeld.
All right. You're right, though. That's what brings people to the yard for this series.
I thought Deadpool and the floating deadhead
all right.
Deadpool brought people to the yard. And Lady Deadpool.
And
Dogpool. And I have questions, Chad. I have questions.
Boy. Oh, I'm excited.
Well, hang off on your questions. Before you get to that, J.A., why don't you give everybody the 10-cent synopsis of at least the volume you read, which was the first 6 issues. Chad and I continued into 7 through 12, but primarily I think we'll talk more about 1 through 6. So what happens in those issues?
Well, it's the setup, so I'm sure that everything that happened in the next trade is all based on the giant MacGuffin where Deadpool gets a spaceship and they go into space. the Deadpool Corps, because they're the only ones who can defeat this sort of giant Galactus-like entity that instead of eating worlds is eating people's knowledge, is sort of this giant cloud thing that goes down and they suck up everyone's collective conscience into this thing called the awareness, which not the greatest name. Anyways, but that's not the point. The point is not that it has a bad guy, because the bad guy is just almost a MacGuffin. He shows up at the end of one issue and they kill him quite quickly. The whole idea is the journey, because it's the elders have sent the Deadpool Corps on this journey, and you get the champion routinely played off as this tries hard, but ultimately not the smartest tool.
Tool is a good way to describe him.
Yes, not the sharpest tool in the shed, and the Deadpool Corps have a lot of fun with the champion. The gardener shows up, and they just make fun of the fact that he's a gardener. That's what you do. You're an elder, but you're a gardener. Anyways, sort of space hijinks ensue with the Deadpool Corps. And as we said, this Deadpool Corps is made up of Lady Deadpool, Deadpool, Headpool, which is the head of undead corpse zombie Deadpool, and to get around he has a little beanie with a helicopter propeller blade on the top. I love that. And Kidpool, which is Deadpool as a kid, and he's got the little toe thing in the back of his head, which gets me to my initial question to Chad. Is I know two Deadpools, essentially. I know the Deadpool from the New Mutants / early X-Force, right when Rob Liefeld created it. And I know the Deadpool of the movies, which is the Merc with the mouth, talking back, breaking the fourth wall, has the little toe in the back of his head. That's obviously, there's a giant gulf, which is most of the Deadpool continuity right in the middle of that. So where does this Deadpool stand in that? Because I know Rob Liefeld was not a fan of the character design with the toe in the back of the head. Is he also a fan of how they've sort of retro-made the Deadpool character into this Merc with the mouth?
So Deadpool was extremely popular immediately out of the gate. New Mutants 98, super popular comic book. And Liefeld had given some interviews at the time about how, they put a trading card of Deadpool in issue 1, and the plan initially was to bring him in around issue 6 or issue 7. But the fan response around Deadpool was so strong, the editor's like, you got to push this up. And so he eventually showed up in X-Force 2. It's a second major appearance there. But the hallmarks of what make Deadpool have always been there. He's always been cracking jokes. He's always been like a cross between Spider-Man and Bugs Bunny, just with swords and knives, like throw Snake Eyes into the mix. Liefeld had gone off to do his Image thing, and then Joe Kelly came on and wrote the first Deadpool regular series. And a lot of what we know about Deadpool was smoothed over and sculpted and crafted into the character we know today. I don't know. I think that's where the fourth wall stuff started happening. But then once again, Deadpool has managed to be a super popular character throughout his entire history. He's a character that can be played multiple different ways. He could be very silly. He could be a little bit scary. It all depends on how they want to use him. He's very malleable. In this series, you get to all the spin-offs, just like with Marvel when the Incredible Hulk was super popular. The mandate from Stan Lee was we have to make She-Hulk before CBS does, and then CBS owns She-Hulk. We have to make Spider-Woman so that we own Spider-Woman before somebody else does. And so here you get Lady Deadpool, Kidpool, Dogpool, Headpool. It's just like the Deadpool ethos where they take everything, they stretch it out to the 1000th degree, and cram it all together.
The question I have, though, Chad, is, was this Rob Liefeld's first work on Deadpool since kind of leaving Marvel? Did he work on any other Deadpool series before coming back and doing Prelude to Deadpool Corps, and then Corpse, and then the Corpse 2 and the stuffs?
Well, Rob Liefeld had done some work for Marvel. Famously, he came back in 1996, taking over the Captain America, the Avengers books, and making everybody mad that the heroes are born stuff. Continued to do some work for Marvel, including a couple of issues of Wolverine, where he brought Deadpool into Wolverine, and that's one of the first times that they had an extended melee there. But he had come back around 2008 to revisit The Heroes Reborn with Jeff Loeb, and it was called Onslaught Reborn, and they did a 5-issue miniseries. He had also been doing covers for Cable and Deadpool when that series started. He did the first couple of covers. Although I haven't always followed Deadpool super closely. There was a series that had really cool movie poster covers. The Lady Deadpool came out of that series. It was called Deadpool Merc with a Mouth. So issue number 7 has Rob Liefeld on art in there. Also written by Victor Geisler.
And this is completely different. This whole Lady Deadpool and everything. This is all completely different from Gwenpool, right? Because everybody knows about the Gwenpools nowadays. And she's not in this. She's not a part of the Deadpool Corps because she hadn't been invented yet. But that's a completely different thing, right?
Right. So Gwenpool, not actually a Deadpool clone. Gwenpool's a real person that gets sucked into the comic book universe.
And is a variation of a variation.
Yep. Originally for one of Marvel's variant covers. She was a combo of Gwen Stacy and Deadpool visually. But whenever they put the character into stories, they give her a whole different background. She is not a Deadpool. She's her own meta commentary thing. There's all kinds of stuff. It's just absolute bonkers madness. She came in. I remember reading her first couple of stories in Howard the Duck. She was a backup there. But yeah,
that sounds just about right. A backup to Howard the Duck. I was waiting for Howard the Duck to show up in this universe because it is that sort of bonkers cosmic Marvel where they don't take themselves too seriously. And that's what I really liked about the book, to sort of pivot to the actual story we were meant to be reading and reviewing.
But you're right. The one thing that I thought was interesting about this particular series, J.A., was the fact that it actually didn't really have a lot to do with the rest of the Marvel Universe, other than, again, the elders showing up at the beginning, right? They even introduced, an elder that really wasn't in anything else with this contemplator guy or whatever, and then Grandmaster's there, which we all know, and then Champion, which we kind of sort of know too. And they started making fun of the elders, because you're right, other than the Collector and the Grandmaster, the rest are crap. There was one called the Runner. He was awful. Oh, your thing is running. Your thing is gardening. But in any case, other than those characters, pretty much you don't need to know anything about the Marvel Universe to enjoy this book. It's off on its own little island doing its whole thing, and it's almost like they gave Rob Liefeld, here's your creation. Do your own thing for 12 issues, which was refreshing. Refreshing, I guess. I mean, I'm trying to be nice about this because I will say, before I pivot to you guys, it is still kind of very juvenile. Frat boy humor. Let's dress up a lady like Slave Leia, or what do they call her now? Hut Slayer Leia. Have her running around in a bikini and then have girls fight. And you would think that I would like that stuff, but even I was just really?
Listen, I'm a huge Liefeld fan. I was having a hard time with this one for the first couple issues. The plot here is flimsy at best. It's just an excuse to smash together all these different Deadpool things. But you take what's great about Deadpool, but then you replicate it 4 or 5 other times with all these different characters. And it's a lot of too much of a good thing. But I will say that eventually, it maybe was around issue 5 or so, when they get into the big fight, we finally get some action. It's not just Deadpools being Deadpools to each other and Deadpooling all about. As long as you turned off your brain and any awareness you might have, after you've read through enough of this, it actually does get to be really fun. And you'll get points later on in the back half where it's, Deadpool facing off against Lady Deadpool, and you get those fight scenes. And you get all these crazy, Deadpool plans, and it's just everything that people love about Deadpool. They amp it up to 11. And one of the things that's true about Deadpool is he can be kind of annoying sometimes. So that get it amped up as well. But at the end of the day, it does turn out to be a fun little romp. Deadpool gets to bed a number of different blue ladies for reasons I don't understand.
So that they can use the Captain Kirk joke.
What I didn't understand was Deadpool and Lady Deadpool, can they get it on? Or do they have? How does that work?
Is that a sister thing, or is that a West Virginia sister thing?
Listen, if there's one character who would go at it with themselves. I would assume it's Deadpool, right? So multiversal rules be darned. But you get a little tease at some tension there, but it is not consummated.
And eventually they do have a fight, but like in the back half of this series. But I just didn't think there was enough characterization in any of the other Deadpools other than it just being a Deadpool. Like it was just, to your point, Chad, there was just a lot of one character running around 6 times a lot of the time.
Yes.
Or, well, not all running around. One had to use propellers to get around. But I like that. I don't know what you guys are talking about. What's wrong with taking a cool character like Deadpool and just multiplying him, giving us variants of the same thing over and over again? And when you compare this to Deadpool Batterblood, which we also read, I will take this any day of the week.
Really?
Yeah, it was. Oh, yeah. I thought the art was better. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's sacrilegious or something to say that, but I thought Liefeld was a little bit tighter in this run. I mean, Batterblood just felt like Liefeld, okay, I'm going to make a really cool pose, and then we'll do the story around that pose. Or I'm going to do another big. It was very image.
Great.
And this is a little bit more sort of his New Mutants.
This had a plot.
X-Force has a plot.
Is that what you're saying? It had a plot.
See, there's a plot here. I don't think it had, like, Deadpool and the New Mutants X-Force stuff. That was grand soap opera stuff, right? Cable's has telekinesis now, and Stripe has Cable's face, and Sam's immortal? What the hell? Like, all that stuff was just bonkers crazy. This was more, you could tell this wasn't a Liefeld written experience. It was more paint by numbers, I thought.
I'm laughing just because, like, I agree with the original New Mutants and X-Force stuff. That was a good run, but come on. Batterblood? That was so paint by numbers. That wasn't even finger paint by numbers.
Listen, this is where there was so much more of the stuff I love about Rob Liefeld in Bad Blood and Batterblood than here, and this was fine. But this also reminded me, why don't read Deadpool on a regular basis? Because like I said early on, like 2 or 3 issues in, I'm like, ooh, I've had enough. It was like,
really? I love those issues. The whole back and forth with them and Champion. I just thought it reminded me of some of the crazier, wackier Silver Surfers from the late 80s, early 90s, sort of the Warlock Infinity Watch type stuff where it's cosmic, but it doesn't affect anyone else in the Marvel universe. And that's what I love, when you just get random aliens and random characters who never show up again. But it's like, let's just throw a lot of stuff at the wall. Some of it will stick. It'll be a fun experience. It'll be a fun story. And you just reminded me of that New Mutants X-Force run. That cover that introduced Deadpool also introduced Domino, who's still around, and Gideon.
Don't forget Gideon.
Is Gideon still a thing?
Unfortunately, no. Gideon did not make it out of the 90s, I don't think.
He's living at a retirement home with G.W. Bridge.
I'm guessing...
I love G.W. Bridge.
I'm guessing it doesn't... his name in that
All
respect.
right. Well, we have a movie review to get to, so it's now time for ratings of these first, I guess, either 6 issues or 12 issues, however you want to rate it, of the Deadpool Corps. I don't think we've ever really decided on how we pronounce that word, but J.A. is going to decide on what our 1 out of 4 scale is. What is it for this series?
Well, how many Deadpools are you giving it?
I was hoping.
That goes without saying.
Cha-ching!
I was hoping that's where you were going. We're going to start off with Chad. He is a resident Rob Liefeld superfan as well as semi Deadpool aficionado. So, Chad, where does this rank among your Deadpools?
This is giving the people what they want. Before the show started, I pulled out the San Diego Comic-Con 2013 special, the last gasp of the wonderful Marvel Universe line, where they did the Deadpool Corps. And you got yourself a Champion Pool, a Lady Deadpool, Dogpool, Squirrel Pool, which wasn't in this series, Kid Pool, which was not as posable as some of the other toys, which made me a little bit sad. And Champion Pool, like, this is what people wanted. And so I think, as much as I was like early on, like, oh, this is too much of a good thing, like I said, there's a point, I want to say it was around issue 5 when they're fighting that big robot, when I finally got some of the action sequences. I love the page where the heroes have been gassed or whatever, and they're living through their nightmares, and Deadpool's there, and he's just all by himself, like a blank page.
No one to talk to.
Yeah.
Nothing to react to.
The perfect hell just for him. Yep. Nobody to react to him, just Deadpool crumpling in the blank negative space.
Yeah, and Lady Deadpool's sort of in that Twilight Zone episode where she's beautiful and everyone else is ugly, and so then ugly becomes beautiful.
Yep, and Kid Pool's stuck in knockoff Donkey Kong, getting thrashed with barrels. And, like, I do think they had a lot of fun with this series, right? And I do think the back half, they found their footing. Like issue 5, issue 6, issue 7, seeing Deadpool go through and have all these cockamamie schemes. Like, I don't know if just there was something about the setup that didn't speak to me, but at the end of the day, I really enjoyed it. Did I enjoy some other more recent Deadpool stuff more? Yeah. But for what it is, you want a multiversal romp with 5 different Deadpools, that's what you get. As far as ratings go, I'm going to give it 2.75 Deadpools.
Cha-ching!
Okay. I'm going to go next, and I think I'm going to echo Chad's rating. I think this is a 2.75, and I am only, though,
Cha-ching!
rating the first 6 issues, which I thought, unlike Chad, was actually the stronger portion of this story. I actually, to J.A.'s point, I liked the story about them running around fighting the awareness, and I did like the interactions with the champion. I thought he added a lot of levity. For those folks that are, maybe just fans of the movies, he kind of plays like that Dave Bautista, Drax type character. He's, big dumb guy, but it worked for me. The second half of the series kind of highlighted the problems I had with the series, which, believe it or not, a lot of folks might not realize that I'm not a huge fan of the objectifying nature of comic books and women sometimes. And I really thought that, there were moments in this Deadpool series where the women are treated not so great. Really just eye candy, arm candy. There's even an issue where, Lady Deadpool gets all her scars healed, and she's like, I'm beautiful now. Yay! And I have value. And I'm like, boy, for somebody that's an awesome fighter and can kick ass all over the place, the fact that she was excited about being pretty now, I just was like, I don't know, it just rubbed me the wrong way. Let's dress up this alien princess in a pencil skirt and make her walk around being corporate lady girl so that she can be bedded by it was just, it seemed very frat boy and juvenile, even for somebody like me. It seemed just very
if
obvious.
You're looking for depth, this is not where you come for depth of storyline.
But overall, it was better than average. I enjoyed it. It was a page turner, and I got through all 12 issues, I think, in one sitting. And I think it's good for folks that are looking for a Deadpool series. You don't need to know a lot about what's going on in the Marvel Universe. You can just pick it up and read it, which is great for people coming out of the theaters and want something to read. So 2.75. J.A.
And that's why it's a 3.
Cha-ching!
Because it's something that you can just pick up. And not only do you get Deadpool, but you get Deadpool as a woman, you get Deadpool as a dog, you get Deadpool as a kid, you get Deadpool as a zombie head with a propeller, propel them around. I still love that creature design. And then you get the champion dressed up as Deadpool. So what's not to love? Is it Shakespeare? No. But, there's not a lot of Shakespeare in comic books. It's something that you can breeze through. You don't need to invest a lot of time and effort into knowing a ton of back matter, as I didn't know who all these different Deadpools were or where they came from. It didn't matter. It was just fun. Is the story a bit plot thin, almost a MacGuffin just to get them on the journey? Yes, but a lot of sort of fun journey stories are just MacGuffins. And, Lord of the Rings took 3 books to get to the point where all they had to do was jump on some eagles and fly over to Mount Doom. So it's a 3. I loved it. I really enjoyed it. I'm going to read the second trade after we get off this show, just to see how bad or good it is. Chad is holding up. What is that, Chad?
This is a 2-page spread of Deadpool v. Lady Deadpool. They're fighting for another planet. They basically have separated and they're on different sides, and one wants to run the planet one way and one wants to run the planet the other way. And so the Deadpools just beat the living bejesus out of each other. And that's what I want out of Rob Liefeld stuff. I want those action scenes. I want those quips in the middle of, sword play and hands being cut off and people being stabbed, all that other fun stuff. That's what I'm here for.
Now I'm intrigued. I'm going to have to finish the book when we finish recording, so I can say that I also read all 12. I guess I should have read all 12 before we could have talked more about it, but that's all right. We don't have that much time.
Yeah, we don't. Absolutely. We got to get to the commercial break so we can be back with quick recommendations and get you to your movie review. So stay tuned for more of The Last Comic Shop right after this.
LastComicShopPodcast.com is the destination for all things shop. Plan your week with upcoming show schedules, the latest books, recommendations, and chatter from the crew. Subscribe to the show on all major podcasting platforms from one convenient location. Show your support and browse the merch store. T-shirts, tanks, hoodies for the fam, coffee mugs, magnets, totes, and more. Check out exclusive content through the show's YouTube channel and follow the pod on Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, and others. All this and so much more at www.lastcomicshoppodcast.com. www.lastcomicshoppodcast.com.
Hey everybody, this is Nerd Bomber here, one of the co-hosts of the Online Warriors podcast. Our weekly podcast started as a way for three friends to keep in touch and discuss their passion for movies, gaming, technology, and entertainment. And since then, we've grown into a fantastic online community. Every Wednesday, we release a new episode discussing the latest nerdy news, and then we go hands-on with our weekly adventures and a fun trivia show. Sound interesting? Check us out on every podcast platform, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts, or hit us up at onlinewarriorspodcast.com.
All right, we're back with more of The Last Comic Shop, and it is now time for recommendations. And we're going to trying to be quick about this, because again, I know that everybody just cares about the Deadpool Wolverine review that's coming up very shortly. But we are going to give you some other comic books that you can pick up at your local comic book store, in addition to Deadpool Corps, whatever, volumes 1 and 2, should you be so inclined. And I'm going to go ahead and start. And I know that I mentioned in the previous segment, it's amazing that you're not all about like the objectifying nature of women in comics. But boy, there's a book I read recently called Gun Honey, which I'm going to recommend, which, gosh, that's full of really, really gorgeous women. In fact, good old-fashioned lady form on display in this particular book. But unlike Deadpool, which I felt was just cheesecake for cheesecake's sake, Gun Honey is actually an extremely good crime noir drama written by Charles Ardai with art by Ong Hor Kung. It tells the story of a orphaned girl. Her dad was involved with some sort of criminal thing, ended up dying in an explosion with her brothers. She ends up becoming what's called a gun honey, which is somebody who plants guns or weapons in places for other assassins to get. So, for example, at the beginning of the book, you're introduced to her being escorted onto some crime boss's yacht. And it's not so that she can kill him, but that she can leave a gun there so that the assassin can. But it shows how, like, she actually has to be twice as clever to actually get the gun into these places than the actual assassin themselves. From there, she gets involved with this secret government agency who has information on who killed her father in that explosion. So she ends up doing some work for them. She also has to break into a prison and get like these weapons to this one inmate there. It reminded me actually a lot of Golgo 13, right? We reviewed that earlier on Last Comic Shop and how he was an assassin who could just make these incredible shots, and pretty much it was just all about like how did he make the shot. Gun Honey's kind of like, how is she going to get the weapon into this place? Like, how is she going to smuggle? Who's she going to have to seduce? Or what walls are she going to have to climb? Or is she going to have to tunnel through the sewer system to plant this weapon so that ultimately she can get the job done? But it's just got a lot of twists and turns. So if you like crime noir, if you're a fan of those kind of books, then I would recommend Gun Honey. From hard case crime which is a part of Titan Books. They've got a couple different volumes out now, and all of them are really, really good. So check it out.
Okay, well, I'll go next. I really got into the cosmic aspects of Deadpool Corps, so I'm recommending Warlock and the Infinity Watch. And this was a series that ran in the 90s, started off at the end of Infinity Gauntlet and ran through the other Infinity War and Infinity Crusade. And so you get Warlock, who had the Infinity Gauntlet, but then he creates this team. This is sort of like Guardians of the Galaxy before there were Guardians of the Galaxy. And you have Warlock, the cool blue skin Gamora from the book, not sort of the movie Gamora, and she's got a fishnet outfit. Pip the Troll, Moondragon, this bald chick also with the weird costume. Drax the Destroyer.
And they both have
naval cut outfits on, yes. Was still comic books. But, you know, hijinks ensue. They're trying to protect the world using these Infinity Stones. Thanos is around. Drax fights the Hulk. The Magus comes because Warlock goes through his identity crisis, and it all sets up the Infinity War. Is it the best storytelling in the world? No, it's 90s Marvel, but it's cosmic and it's fun. And I'm sure you can find these issues in buck bins. They also put it together into a trade called Infinity Watch Volume 1, which has the first 22 issues all bound in a paperback. So that is my recommendation.
All right, and for my recommendation, I'm going to go with Deadpool, the Complete Joe Kelly Collection, Volume 1, which is hard to find in physical format, but it's still available on Kindle. And the reason being is this collects the Deadpool series from 1997 that I talked about earlier, where Joe Kelly took all of the great pieces that Rob Liefeld had provided with the character for Deadpool and fleshed him out that last additional step to make him a heroic character, to make him a fallible character, to make him a character with a little bit more pathos, as opposed to the Liefeld version, which was the Merc for hire, go into the highest bidder. In the Joe Kelly Deadpool, he had a crush on Siren from X-Force and was constantly trying to impress her. He becomes, more fallible. It has art by Ed McGuinness, who has a totally different style, but at the same time, it's almost as awesome as the Liefeldian style. He draws these big, chunky characters. It's great. Deadpool has to go up against the Hulk and get the Hulk's blood at one point. And the reason why I chose this particular collection is because it has the beginning of the series, which was wonderful and established like what Deadpool has become, but it also includes Deadpool number 11. And I don't know if you guys remember Deadpool number 11, but it was something that was super creative. They took Amazing Spider-Man 47 and put Deadpool and Blind Al in that issue. So they traveled back in time into the Silver Age, and they basically cut them into panels from Amazing Spider-Man 47, where he's going up against Kraven. And it is hilarious and super impressive, and just one of those really fun feats of comic book art that works there, that doesn't work anywhere else. If you're not going with the Joe Kelly collection, you can find issue 11 eventually. I think it's in volume 3 of some of the other things, or some of the master works. But those first couple of issues where he establishes the character, like, those are just tons of fun. And then whenever they get to issue 11, that's definitely one that I think comic book fans should check out, just to see how they work it. Splicing them into the story the way that they do. And it has all the zany Deadpool stuff you come to expect, but just in a genuinely artful way. It's super cool.
Yeah, the Joe Kelly run, that's where all like the chimichanga jokes come from, right? And like the Hydra agent for sure isn't
Bob
the Hydra agent, isn't he from that run? I think
maybe. I don't remember him early on, but it's been a minute since I've read through. He didn't make a huge impact on me if he wasn't in those issues, but it's definitely the thing that solidified the character of Deadpool into this force that's been going on for 30. How many years?
A long time, Chad.
No, 1992, wasn't there? 91.
We're old folks, so you can say things like it's been over 30 years. Now, look,
over 30 years, yeah.
One thing that's going to have a tremendous impact is our review of Deadpool Wolverine, and that's coming up right after these commercial breaks. So stay tuned for more stuff from these old folks. at the Last Comic Shop.
Hi, it's Carlo Calantuan, Last Comic Shop podcast listener and comic book tragic here in the Philippines. Mabuhay! When I'm in the US, I'm always on the lookout for a good deal on boards, bags, boxes, and all other manner of comic book related supplies. And that's why I love to go to bcwsupplies.com and use the promo code LCSPOD to get 10% off of all my orders. Not only do I get a discount on everything I buy at BCW, but I'm able to support the podcast when I use LCSPOD at checkout. So if you're in need of comic book supplies, head over to bcwsupplies.com and use the promo code LCSPOD. Oh, and guys, I'm still waiting for that Tressie review. Come on, when is it?
Do you long to see an exiled Greek god summon an army of heroes to wage war against his crazed mutant cyborg nemesis? Do you feel a deep yearning to witness the daily life of an evil, rebellious dominatrix in her natural habitat? Do you wish Saturday morning cartoons had more lizards with revolvers and wasps with shotguns? Well, you're in the right place, partner, because we've got all that and more. Lords of the Cosmos 5 is frothing at the mouth with testosterone-drenched battle cries, red-hot revenge plots, guns ablaze, mutant military ops, and some good old-fashioned unicorn torture. Coming to Kickstarter on September 10th.
All right, we're back with more Last Comic Shop, and it is now time for what everybody has been waiting for. That's right. Is it the movie that saves the MCU? Ooh, they sure made a lot of jokes about it. I mean, take the L. Like, that was one of my favorite lines in the entire movie. But it's Deadpool Wolverine. It is our movie review for this week's show.
And we're going to talk about spoilers, so come on. I mean, you can't. Yeah. I watched a couple spoiler-free reviews on YouTube. They're straight trash. They're so pointless. It's worthless.
With especially the way movies are nowadays, like, if you don't see it within the first 7 days, you ain't going to see it. You're going to wait for it on video, and I don't have time for you people.
That is another thing that needs to go away.
All right. Well, one thing that's not going to go away is J.A. Scott giving us the cast list for this particular movie. He does such a wonderful job at it. So, J.A., who was in Deadpool Wolverine?
All right. Well, Deadpool Wolverine, directed by Sean Levy on a script by Ryan Reynolds, Rhett Reeves, Paul Wernick, Zeb Wells, and Sean Levy. That's 2 more writers than Deadpool Part 2, and 3 more writers that were on Deadpool Part 1. But based on the Marvel Comics, produced by Kevin Feige, because we're in the MCU, everyone. Starring Wade Wilson, Deadpool, as played by Ryan Reynolds, Logan Wolverine, Hugh Jackman, Emma Corrin as Cassandra Nova, who is Charles X's sister from a different dimension. Some of the original Deadpool family comes back, but they're there for like 5 seconds. I felt they got very short shrift. That includes the beautiful Marina Baccarin, Rob Delaney, and Leslie Uggams as Blind Owl. And then you got some nice cameos. We had Aaron Stanford show up as Pyro, Daphne Keane as X-23, Jennifer Garner, Wesley Snipes, Chris Evans, not as Captain America.
That was
awesome.
Probably
the best little cameo. And Channing Tatum they did it on purpose. He looked horrible in that costume, and you could not understand a word he was saying as the Rebel, the Gambit. I am the Gambit.
Oh, yes. But it worked. It worked somehow. It was one of those things where it was so bad that it went all the way around and came back up to the top. And you're like, this is good. Good for him that he finally got to play Gambit.
And then, and as I said, Karen Sony was Dopinder, Brianna Hildebrand as Negasonic Teenage Warhead. No longer a teenager, though. So can you still be the Teenage Warhead if you're no longer a teenager?
Negasonic Young Lady Warhead.
Yes, and the beautiful Shiloh Katsuna as Yukio. And again, I mean, they had big parts in the first 2 movies. They were really just the background for this. They were in the top and tail and nothing else. So they got a bit of short shrift.
Hey, some other folks that got some short shrift were all of the Deadpool Corps. You didn't even talk about them.
Right. Yeah,
Blake Lively was in this
she
movie.
shows. I mean, she doesn't take her mask off. So unless you watch the credits, you don't know that it's Blake Lively being Mrs. Deadpool or whatever.
I was
Deadpool.
surprised by that. With the big mystery, like, is it going to be Taylor Swift? Is Taylor Swift going to be dazzling?
What'd you think of Headpool? You loved Headpool in the book we just read. What do you think of Headpool here?
I thought it was better in the book.
You got Dogpool and like Kidpool was there.
Dogpool was good. Dogpool was good. And Good Pool. Is it Good Pool? What is the
Nice Pool?
Nice Pool. Yes.
Yes. He can't heal. You're gonna live. You're gonna.
No. I can break the fourth wall. The proposal.
But you are forgetting about the absolute best cameo in this movie, the bathtub. The bathtub makes an appearance. That's right, the bathtub-shaped Fantastic Car.
Matthew McConaughey was the cowboy Deadpool. Nathan Fillion was the voice of Headpool.
Oh,
wow.
I did not know that.
Speaking of Headpool, by the way, Fred Van Lente got a special thanks in the credits because he created Headpool in Marvel Zombies 3, another comic book we reviewed here on the last Comic Shop podcast. But talking about this particular movie, and again, we've spoiled the heck out of it thus far, so you might as well get a spoiler-rific 10-cent synopsis from our very own Chad Smith. So, Chad, what was Deadpool Wolverine all about?
Not a lot of plot there. So we had a British guy calls Deadpool and says, I want you to help me destroy your universe. For whatever reason, Deadpool's like, no, I don't want to. But they explain that because that universe had lost its anchor, a.k.a. Logan, that it was going to slowly dissipate anyway. And so Deadpool decides that to save his universe, he's going to go back and he's going to find a Logan to come back and be the new anchor. And basically a whole bunch of fan service ensues. They go into the Void, which is run by Cassandra Nova, and you meet a bunch of expatriates from the Fox movie universe. So that's where Chris Evans pops up, and everyone's like, oh, Captain America. But no, it's Johnny Storm, Chris Evans. Surprise! And then there's Blade. Surprise! And Elektra also surprise! And there's a bunch of surprise! And then they decide they're going to fight Cassandra Nova, and then you get a bunch of Wolverine Deadpool fights. The end. Roll credits, including all the clips of them making all the Fox movies throughout the years in a glowing, sentimental fashion.
Well, one thing that in terms of that 10-cent synopsis, at one point Deadpool goes to alternate universes to track down the Wolverine that he feels like is going to be the anchor. And so I don't care if you guys liked the movie or not. I guarantee all of us at least liked going and seeing these other versions of Wolverine. So we're going to go on record and saying which one was your favorite. I'm going to go first because I'm going to pull what I think was the best one. And that was, oh, look, brown and tan.
John Byrne.
Fighting the Hulk. And then the Hulk was there. And I was just like, yes, that is still the best costume. J.A.?
Yes, that is the best costume, but it's not the best Wolverine. The best Wolverine is the comic book accurate Wolverine. Standing in at 5'1".
Oh my goodness, how weird did that look?
Uncanny Valley, completely.
Chad, did you have a favorite?
Well, since you guys picked those, I'll go with the Mark Silvestri up on the X cross. And Deadpool's like, yeah, well, I'll come back later. You're busy. You look busy. But no, that was the beautiful part about this movie was, and you're going to hear lots of people complain about how it was fan service, and they are right. But if you are people like us, I'm the type of person, I read the comics, I watch most of these movies, because some of them, like Elektra, where my back. But to see those things come to fruition, you know, whether it was John Byrne things, whether it was that Mark Silvestri X cover, they fan serviced in every which way the type of fan that pays attention to all this stuff. And with Deadpool breaking the fourth wall and, you know, Blade saying, I'll be the only Blade. And like, if you were that kind of fan, yes, it's fan service, but it is for you.
Absolutely. And I think that's where I'm going to start with my initial thoughts. I enjoyed the hell out of it. I think this is one of the best, well, not best, but one of the more fun Marvel movies I've seen probably since the last time we took a trip around the multiverse and got a lot of fan service in Spider-Man No Way Home. A really great team up between two actors that genuinely enjoyed playing their parts with each other. Like, again, it was a lot of great chemistry from Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds. It was tough at times to believe some of the more, dramatic parts. I mean, Hugh has the dramatic chops, but like, it was really difficult for me to believe any time like Ryan Reynolds was trying to be serious, just simply because all the rest of the entire movie, he was not. So I feel like that was the only detriment in terms of it, but I loved it. Some people may think that it was real paper thin in terms of a plot with this whole void place. I loved that. I loved it. I dump a bunch of Easter eggs and just let them play wild and without continuity or anything, that's how kind of madcap crazy stuff with Deadpool should exist. And so I think it fit the character and it fit the theme of what I wanted from this movie. And it was nice to see Hugh Jackman back as Wolverine, even at 55. And they said, you're going to play this till you're 90. I hope so.
It's only like 5 more years.
He makes a damn good Wolverine. I don't know about you guys, but like, I don't know if there can be anybody else that can play him.
When you're that cut with that many abs, his abs had abs. I thought it was some really well done set pieces, tied together by like the thinnest of thins plot and exposition. And I don't know if the two make up a full movie. It was a good Marvel movie for what we get from Marvel these days. It was not as good of a Deadpool movie. It's always funnier when you're pointing your jokes at the other big franchise, not when you're part of that franchise poking jokes from the inside. They don't land as hard because they're not thrown as hard.
There were times they went pretty hard in this, man.
Yeah, they went pretty hard, but they're still from the inside, right? So when you're not the outsider anymore, it doesn't matter if you're trying to feel like you still are the outsider with that outsider cred. You're not. You're an insider. And the biggest issue with that is that whole TVA thing. It's convoluted. It's not good. It reminds you of like the worst excesses of the MCU. They even had to turn it into a joke where that giant monster thing in the void is, and Deadpool turns and looks at the camera and says, "Oh yeah, like episode 4 of the first season of Loki or whatever. It's episode 5, right?" So I think it's the least structured Deadpool movie. But it's still a lot of fun. I mean, for all of those fan servicey bits that don't get too distracting, and there was sort of a feeling of nostalgia, and then that's where, like that end credit scene that is straight out of a high school graduation ceremony package, or even playing the Green Day song while you were looking at the old clips. I mean, it's like, how friggin' hard are you going to pull on these heartstrings?
Yeah, no, that was cheesy as hell, and I was not a fan of that.
And I just had one logistical thing at the beginning where he's fighting with the bones of Wolverine. Yeah, I get that they're adamantium, but I didn't know that adamantium suddenly made every piece of bone like razor sharp.
Yeah.
He's like cutting people's legs off with a leg bone. I mean, the leg bone's a round bone. I didn't understand the physics of that.
Yeah,
all right.
If you're trying to understand the physics of things, you're in the wrong movie for this one, buddy. Much like Spider-Man No Way Home, although it was a little bit more clumsy than No Way Home, I'd say No Way Home was more of a complete story with the emotional beats. This one starts off by acknowledging that Logan was the best of the Fox movies, and then immediately desecrating it, digging up its bones and whipping them around like Wonder Woman and Dead Earth, and using, the Wolverine skull attached to the spine. Immediately, you know what kind of movie you're going to get. This is not reverential to plots. This is going to do whatever the most awesome thing is for awesome's sake. And so if you're coming into this looking for a complete movie, this is not Oscar-worthy fare. But if you are a fan that's paid attention to the rumors, that was waiting for the Channing Tatum Gambit movie that never materialized, that's who this is for. I thought they had a heck of a lot of fun, and it was a love letter to something that I didn't necessarily love, which was the Fox cinematic universe. There were a lot of clunky Fox movies. I mean, even the first Deadpool notoriously wasn't going to be made until somebody leaked the 10-minute test footage, and that eventually got it. When Fox initially tried to use Deadpool, they took the Merc with a mouth and sewed his mouth shut, and the dumbest decision I've ever seen. And those are the people that were in charge. Not everything's for everyone, and while a lot of those Fox movies weren't for me, you could tell that Ryan Reynolds and company had an affection for that Fox cinematic universe and the things that they were able to do. And no one can take away, how great those first couple of Blade movies were, or those first couple of X-Men movies that jump-started the whole comic book movie zeitgeist. And so this was a nice capper on that. With that said, if this is the last multiverse movie, I'd be okay with that. Like, there was just so much here. And once you even get to the Deadpool Corps, like, I was super excited for Lady Deadpool and, all these other Deadpools. They're just a quick plot contrivance. They're dispatched within minutes.
Yeah, but you know what, Chad? From the perspective of, like, the Deadpool Corps, I thought you could have looked at it as kind of a meta commentary on things like the Doctor Strange movie, where they finally brought in folks like the John Krasinski, Reed Richards, and then like immediately dispatch him. The Patrick Stewart, Professor X, kill him. Bring these characters that we've been waiting for, Captain Carter, just kill her. In this movie, they did bring them back and just killed them, but they made fun of the fact that they were just like, yep, we're bringing these people in as fan service, and here they are, and they're going to get their big ending. So they were making fun of the fact that, like, in these other movies, they did it on purpose, and it was really shitty. The tongue-in-cheek of bringing back Chris Evans, Johnny Storm, just to kill him. Like, they brought these people back.
That was to bring it back because, that was the best bait and switch, because everyone thinks he's going to say Avengers Assemble, and he goes, flame on. that was the joke.
But I think it works with a character like Deadpool as opposed to Doctor Strange.
Yeah, much. It worked
Deadpool's
much
supposed
better.
to take the piss out of it.
And it wasn't all jokes, too, because they bring back Daphne Keane to do X-23, and that's really getting into the pathos of what Logan is and his hero's journey, if you will. And if there was a character that I had wished they had brought back for this that would have added to that pathos, would have been nice to see Anna Paquin's Rogue.
There are so many that they could. I'm sure they asked Ben Affleck, and then Daredevil died. Well, no big loss.
That's not just a commentary on him as a character. I think that's more of a commentary on him as a human being.
Keep the cameos coming for me. Don't listen to Chad. I love it. Keep this multiverse going. I love when these people are thrown back in. I think Deadpool Wolverine reset it. Now it's just like, yeah, who cares if they kill him? Now they made fun of it, so it's cool again.
Well, that's the thing. Like, if you knew that Channing Tatum was supposed to be Gambit, and you see that happen, it's like, oh my goodness. If you remembered Blade, which, do you remember when the Blade movies came out? That was what, like 1998? Like, there are people that weren't born when the Blade movies came out that are now full-fledged adults that could rent cars and things. But if you're not getting those references, I don't think you're getting a satisfying movie experience out of this.
Yeah, that also goes back to sort of that it was a lot of set pieces held together by the thinnest of plot devices and some of that also I think you have to chalk up to the fact that when they were in production with this, there was a lot of issues they were having to overcome. They had the writer's strike, they had the actor's strike. So I think that stuff doesn't happen. Maybe the movie is a little bit tighter on plot and story, but because
of all the stuff they have in there, I don't know how you tighten this one up to make it.
No.
Well, that whole TVA thing gets rewritten into something that's a little bit less TVA, because the TVA is just straight trash. It's straight trash.
I get it, but I feel like they came into this movie and they were making the superhero equivalent of like Anchorman. We just need a bunch of gags. We need rapid fire jokes and things going on and excitement and one set piece after another set piece after another set piece. And as well as I do with any good comedy, JA, 9 times out of 10, those plots are razor thin. It's just a matter of getting a plot out there enough so that you can tell the jokes and keep the audience laughing.
People are distracted by the Stanley Steamer cameo. That's all. You can't baffle them with brilliance.
All right. Well, Stanley Steamer Company or not, we're going to get our 1 out of 4 scale from J.A. Scott. So, J.A., what was our 1 out of 4 scale this week?
1 out of 4 aging star cameos.
Oh, that's harsh.
How old do you think Blade is? He's got to be like in his hundreds.
Wesley Snipes is not in his hundreds.
When did Major League come out? Come on, man.
He was like 20 in that movie. Come on. He's probably
like 85. Okay.
70, maybe 60. I thought William Dafoe was an old geezer. Turns out William Dafoe's only like 68 years old. I was just like, wow, that guy did not age well. Any case, my rating is going to be a solid 3 aging starlets, right? I mean, this is a good movie. I know I've come on these shows before and I've like chided both of you about like, oh, what are your expectations for these MCU movies? And like maybe in retrospect, yeah, Quantumania was not a good movie compared to something like Deadpool Wolverine. Finally, there was a movie that I enjoyed. Finally, a movie I was excited. People were excited to see this thing. You know, we were going and there was people lining up and they were buying the merch and all this other stuff. And it was great. It felt like a real comic book movie again. Whether the plot was paper thin, it didn't matter. It's like any good comedy. You just have it there so that you can tell the set pieces, you can tell the gags, you can tell the jokes, and you can move on. And so it achieved its purpose. I didn't need a lot of pathos from Deadpool. If I want pathos, I'll go watch, I don't know, like a Captain America movie. Like the Captain America movies are awesome for pathos. Don't need that from Deadpool. I just need him to mouth off and tell jokes, and it works for me. Chad.
I'm going to go slightly higher. For as critical as I've been, this movie does what it sets out to do. Sure, is it a thing that's been done before? Yeah. But the charm and the charisma of Ryan Reynolds and the interplay with Hugh Jackman, those guys were great. Way better than Wolverine Origins. Oh, how long ago was that? Good golly. Anyway, but it was just fun to watch this happen. And I think this may or may not be the last gasp of the MCU as we know it. At least I'm hoping that it puts a cap on all this multiversal stuff, because you've done it so many times already. Like, let's move on. Let's find something else. Tell some better stories. But I do think this is a movie that you could only do with someone like a Ryan Reynolds and his Deadpool character. Do you need to have an idea of all the different fan servicey stuff to enjoy this? I think so. But as a fan, I was serviced. You know, little Timmy Two-Tone, the queen of BJ's, didn't come knocking on my door, but I still felt at the end of the day like, look, there's John Byrne, look, there's Tiny Wolverine, look, there's Henry Cavill Wolverine, there's Ladypool, there's Headpool, there's Cowboy Deadpool, there's this Stan Lee. Oh, look, it's Blight. Oh, there's so many fun little like things that if you've been following this stuff for the last 20 years, it's great. I hope this closes a book on the MCU multiverse stuff and move again. But as a love letter to something, I thought it worked really well. And so I'm going to go 3.25.
All right. J.A.?
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 3. It's enjoyable. I enjoyed it. I thought it did get sappy at times, that love letter to Fox movies. And, you know, in their own right, some of the Fox movies were quite good. They were very different than the MCU movies. And I don't know, looking back, wistfully thinking, everything after Endgame has been pretty trashy. And so maybe some of those Fox movies, not Elektra, but maybe some of those Fox movies stand above the MCU offerings. And I thought the bits of this movie that didn't work were sort of the shoehorned in MCU multi-universe-y bits that they kind of had to put in the plot to fulfill the greater MCU story that they're trying to lay out, which at this point has just become so convoluted. And they're trying to make it make too much sense. It's not supposed to make sense. It's supposed to be a fun movie with no pathos. I could have. I thought it really was a Deadpool and Wolverine movie. It was nice. They both really were co-leads in this, so it wasn't sort of just Hugh Jackman along for the ride and mostly Ryan Reynolds show. It really felt like it was a buddy cop type movie, and that was nice. But I also felt a lot of these characters that we've come to know and love in the Deadpool universe really got short shrift. I mean, they're there at the beginning, at the end, and they don't even show up. I wanted to see some Negasonic teenage warhead destruction, and Yukio with her weird Japanese throwing.
And I'm sorry, but for the first time ever, right? Didn't we get Colossus? And didn't we get Wolverine? And you couldn't throw in a fastball special? Come on, folks. Every single Easter egg out there, you couldn't throw in one goddamn fastball special. You had the characters. You set it up. Please.
Did I not do enough for you? Come on.
One last thing, one question for the group. Where are we on the Wolverine mask?
I didn't like it.
It just needs some work, right? Like, this is a first good stab at comic book accurate Wolverine. But how many times did we get Spider-Man costumes before we finally went like, oh, that one's nice. I like that one.
I didn't think the eyes worked. I didn't think the white eyes worked. The eyes were very, because they were trying to do the Deadpool thing, I guess. I didn't think the eyes worked. I think you have to see his eyes.
Yeah,
I'm with you on that one. I did love the rest of the suit, though. It looked great on screen.
I thought his wispy things, his handles, needed to be a lot bigger. Like, they were too small. They were too close to his head. Like, maybe I'm used to the John Byrne where they were, like, epically huge as long as his sideburns were. But
I can't believe they let Ryan Reynolds call those things what he did. There's so many things. Cassandra Nova and her beans.
All right. Well, one thing that we hope that you call the Last Comic Shop is home for your comic book talk every single week. And you can do that by going out to www.lastcomicshoppodcast.com. It's a place where you can rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss any of our episodes coming forward. We got some awesome ones coming up. Avengers Twilight next week. We've got Elf Quest coming up. We've got more X-Men when they team up with Star Trek. Sandman, and even more X-Men with the end of the Krakoan Age, all coming up in the next 5 weeks here at the Last Comic Shop. So rate, review, and subscribe so you don't miss any of this fun.
You could see all of our crazy comic book conversations on the socials. We are at Last Comic Shop, Blue Sky, and X, and all those other places. You could also go to our website, www.lastcomicshoppodcast.com, where you can find what this week, J.A.?
Well, we always have links to our merch store. This week, we have a special yellow and blue T-shirts.
Ooh.
You can get them with or without sleeves.
All right, we're planting our flag right here. You only have one choice, one color or the other color. Are you team blue and yellow, or are you team brown and tan? J.A.?
Brown and tan.
Chad?
Blue and yellow.
Oh, man. Brown and tan. Man, it was so good. I want to see that Hulk fight now. That's what I want to see. I hope that's a cameo in an upcoming movie. And the patch! We didn't even talk about the patch!
We didn't talk about patch.
That was so badass. I thought of J.A. immediately.
Yeah. And there was the like super crazy Wolverine in the black big hair.
The Age of Apocalypse.
Yeah, with the one hand.
Yeah. It's good stuff. Good stuff. Great stuff on the Last Comic Shop. Until next week, I'm the host of the most, Andy Larson. I'm joined by Chad Smith and J.A. Scott. And we hope that you stay safe. Stay movie going. It's fun to go to movies.
There you go. There's that Venom one. We saw the preview for Venom. That looks fun.
Yeah, that has a Venom horse. We're going to make you see that.
The Last Comic Shop podcast was a 2024 Black Angus production.